Hey everybody, I'm back with Dylan Wykes, my co-host Dylan from Mile to Marathon, and we're here as part of an ongoing video series that we're doing called Speedwork, presented by Tamarack Ottawa Race Weekend and Scotiabank Ottawa Marathon. And we're here just to kind of unpack some questions that we routinely get, that Dylan certainly gets as a coach. I've gotten over the years, both in my capacity as an event organizer and also a coach as well. And I think, we're really focusing here on the half marathon and marathon distances in this first set of videos we're doing. This is the third in our ongoing series. And today we wanted to talk a little bit about recovery after your longer runs that you're going to be doing in your half and your full. And we want to, Dylan, I think we want to talk about it in a couple of places, right? We want to talk about it from a physical recovery standpoint and then maybe a sort of a nutritional energy standpoint. So walk us through a little bit on what you kind of do from a nutritional standpoint once you finish your long run, and what you recommend to your athletes as well.
For sure, Ian. There's a couple of important kind of time periods to keep in mind. After you press stop on your watch, maybe take a minute to make sure it uploads so that it counts for everyone. You've got about 20 to 30 minutes there when there's a key period where your body's kind of in this super compensation mode. So anything that it absorbs into your system during that 20 to 30 minutes is going to help muscles repair and recover at kind of, a higher rate than it would otherwise. So there's a really key time to take in some carbohydrate and some protein. Carbohydrate is going to help refuel, get the energy back, and the protein is going to help with muscle recovery as well. So something that is convenient, because in the first 20 to 30 minutes after your run, it's like you're really tired. You don't want to have to like make something. So like the protein wafers from Exact are something that are great. They've got a bunch of protein in them and some carbohydrates. I'm also a big fan of like just a carton of chocolate milk. It's got a good ratio there too. So those are a couple of things, or you can pre-make a smoothie or something like that. But that 20 to 30 minute window is key. And then beyond that, we're looking at the first 2 hours after your run. And by then you want to have gotten in a proper meal of food that's just a well-balanced meal that's, not too much of anything, but, your usual portions of fat to protein to carbohydrate, and just keep it simple, but make sure you get it in.
It's a really good point. I probably need to work on my post-run routine a little bit, because I've kind of been trying to address my nutritional requirements and the physical recovery at the same time by opening a can of beer. And I'm just kind of thinking that doesn't necessarily speak to sort of the physical recovery at the same time. I say that jokingly, but you make a good point, like being able to address that sort of immediate need. And practically speaking, you can have a shower, you can chill out for a little bit, and then it's time to have like a meal, a traditional kind of meal afterwards, right? So making sure that you've planned that. And I like that because it kind of follows on from the conversation we had in episode 2, where we were talking about having a plan for the nutrition that you take on during your long run. And then this is really just an extension of that, right?
100%. It's always important to make that plan. And the run, if the run's 2 hours, you've got, time before the run that you have to prepare for, and time after the run, you've got to block off those windows and make sure you're prepared.
So really thinking about your long run, you kind of need to add, from a planning standpoint, like an extra hour to that, right? And think of it holistically as one piece,
Yeah, 100%. And you can't spend that extra hour just lying on the floor, unfortunately.
I like that. So let's talk a little bit about the physical recovery and the things that we probably want to do from a body care standpoint when we, turn the latch on the front door and thankfully the long run's over. Everybody is kind of relieved in some ways when it's done, whether it went really well or it didn't go well. There's always a learning experience, but what do we need to do from a physical care standpoint when we come through the door?
Yeah, I think everyone's initial thing they want to do is either just sit down or, as I said before, just lie down, depending on how hard and how long the long run was. But really, it's important to get in some mobility work at some point along the way. So try, obviously everyone's probably going to sit down for a little bit, but try not to stay static for too long. And you don't have to get into anything that's too long or too intense. Maybe a 5 to 10 minute routine that's working on some dynamic stretching, some stuff that's really just focused on making sure your hips and your hamstrings that's what are going to get most tired on your long run, most likely, are still moving well, and you're kind of setting yourself up. It's kind of also, we've got that super compensation of the nutrition that you're taking in. You're kind of, with this little bit of a mobility routine, you're kind of setting yourself up for that recovery physically.
That's really, it's interesting. Just the idea of some mobility. I remember a few years ago, maybe not that few, but I did, one of the years I did the New York City Marathon, I remember crossing the finish line and having to walk a long way to get my dry sweat, right? I think I probably had to walk about a mile to get my dry sweat stuff. It was the last thing that I wanted to do. And then I had to walk from there. I was like walking distance, the only way to get to where I was staying, right? And so I probably walked 4 to 5K right after running the marathon. And I wanted to sit on every street corner. I wanted to go to the Shake Shack and get something to eat. I wanted to do all of that, right? And I remember how excruciating it was, but I have to say I was not well prepared for this race. But I woke up the next day feeling better than I ever had after any marathon I'd ever done, because I'd had that sort of long period of just mobility, right? I mean, if I'd stopped and done some stretching and I'd done actually some real sort of focused work, it probably would have been even better. But I realized at that point, late in life, that yeah, that makes a huge difference, right?
100%. It's something that we often neglect, but just like you say, just a little bit of it, and you're gonna set yourself up well, and you don't have to walk 4 or 5K. That's a bit extreme, Ian.
What about an ice bath? Should I have jumped in the Hudson River or something?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of ice baths, and I don't know how much is science versus placebo. I haven't looked at the research lately, but it's in theory, it's kind of constricting, that the cold is constricting the muscles, and then it kind of, when you get out, it releases and kind of helps the blood pump through everything more quickly, and therefore speeding up recovery. It's a bit of torture at the time, but I tell you, from my experience, I have felt significantly better the next day after a long run or a really hard workout when I've hit up an ice bath.
That's awesome. Well, look, these are some great ideas, and again, having a system is clearly important here. And thanks for joining me today, and looking forward to doing the next one.
Thanks, Ian.
Thanks again. And this is our ongoing series called Speedwork, brought to you by Dylan Wykes from Mile to Marathon, and us here at Tamarack Ottawa Race Weekend, Scotiabank Ottawa Marathon. We'll see you next time.